Welcome back to Strategy Sessions with AJC Strategies. I'm Abigail Covington, founder of AJC Strategies, and I'm really excited because today I'm here with Calli Zarpas, who is the founder of DoWellDepartment. Calli is actually a fourth generation entrepreneur, which I think is awesome and really cool. And she wants to help all business owners succeed. So her core belief is that taking care of both the business owner and the business is the key to success in any business, which is why she started her business, DoWellDepartment. It's a holistic business community with daily wellness and business workshops. So I had the privilege of participating as one of the workshop leaders a few weeks ago, and I've gone through her website, and I just really love what she does. As someone who has started their own business, I know for a fact that personal self-care, holistic wellness becomes like a back burner because it's just like, how do I turn a profit? Like, how do I not become a total disappointment to myself and everyone else around me? But definitely all of the points that the research, as well as just some of the stuff I've seen on her site, is stuff I've definitely taken to heart. So I'm really interested to learn more about kind of how you got here and introduce the audience to your story and you. So welcome, Calli.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. When I got your email about doing the podcast, I was really excited to just talk more about you because I feel like I always learn something from you when we talk. And so I feel like this is going to be just a two-way street of me learning too. So thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Honestly, and just backstory, I feel like this entire first season is all from personal connections because I just know so many people doing great things. But backstory for the audience, Calli used to save my tail in Latin class because I did not know what was going on. It's just okay. And Calli's yeah, this is the translation. I was great. I'm happy you know, because I don't. So it's been great to just see all the awesome stuff you're doing, your travels, and we'll get into that. And kind of just your experience. So really excited to bring a part of high school and past, forward with everything that's, been happening in the meantime.
Yeah,
awesome.
Me too.
So just kind of give us the backstory. What is the motivation for DoWellDepartment? Where did it come from? When were you okay, this needs to be a thing and I'm the person who needs to do it?
Yeah, definitely. So the whole idea for DoWellDepartment happened. I get a lot of my ideas when I'm listening to podcasts, weirdly, because I think I'm getting a lot of ideas and then my brain is just kind of thinking at the same time, and I'll do them when I'm going on walks. So I was quarantined in France, and it was really strict quarantine last March when COVID just came out, and it wasn't that big in the US. It was just starting in France, and we could only go outside 1 hour per day, and we could only go for up to 1 kilometer, which is about half a mile away from your house. And so it was, you had to have a paper that you had to sign to say where you're going. You had to put your birthday, where you were born. It was crazy.
That's so much more strict than here.
So much more strict. So I was living with my boyfriend, and he lives in a 250 square foot apartment where the bed turns into the couch. So you can imagine that we have never really lived together. We had been dating for a year at this point, and I'm I have to do something with my time because we are both teachers. And so I wasn't working. I just had all this free time to do whatever I want. So obviously I started a business. But the whole idea of DoWellDepartment was I was seeing my friends who had these corporate jobs, and they didn't have the time flexibility, they didn't have the autonomy, but they had somebody taking care of them. They had a boss that they could go and ask to read through an email before they sent it to a prospective client. They had social happy hours that the HR department planned. They had wellness programs, they had work perks. And I was why do entrepreneurs not have something that we could join that we could get all those benefits that you get from a corporate company? Because I think it's really easy as an entrepreneur to feel nobody's taking care of you and it's all you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is you. And so I was I want some help, because I had been working as a freelance writer at the same time, which is why I kind of had that entrepreneur spirit in me. So that's why I ended up creating DoWellDepartment, and I just went all in and did a huge investment in a website, not really knowing what I was doing. But I mean, it's been a lot of fun so far, and I'm excited about the future, but it can definitely be overwhelming, which is why I'm glad I have people like Abigail who can run business workshops for me, and yoga teachers that I have to come do yoga with me every Saturday and help me calm down for the weekend. So yeah.
That's awesome. And I think like, well, first of all, I know it's been like a year and maybe 2 weeks since like, well, at least the US went on. I don't know, like when did France lock down? Was it, you said it was March?
Yeah, it was like end of February, beginning of March.
Yeah. So it's about the same amount of like same period of time. So like just in that year, one seeing like what's happened, but like I think it's almost like your proof of concept of sorts for your business has been like proven like thoroughly about like the strategy of wellness because everybody started being like, are we all working too much? Like, are we sleeping enough? Are we spending enough time on ourselves? And it's just like, it feel like it was the perfect time to start to bring those questions up, like from a strategic standpoint for a business, but also like, just like you said, like from, talking to friends or just personal, relationships. And so it kind of made a lot of people question, like, what is their wellness philosophy? Because some people didn't have one. Many companies didn't until like COVID really forced people to consider like, how is my company taking care of me or not taking care of me? Which is an important question to ask. So like, what would you consider to be like your personal wellness philosophy and like why just in general is like wellness and being healthy in a holistic sense important to you?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is to really listen to your body and educated sources. So there can be a lot of information out there on the internet and
Mm-hmm.
saying like, oh, like do drink apple cider vinegar in the morning and with water, or like, I don't know, kind of stuff like that. And if that works for you and you truly feel better, or that gets you in your mindset drinking that really acidic drink that makes you wake up and ready to work, then that's totally fine. But I've had struggles with my health in the past, and I know that's something scary as an entrepreneur because right now I'm still on my parents' health insurance, but I know that in less than a year I'm not going to be on their insurance anymore. And so it's really an investment in myself, knowing that when I'm taking care of my body and I'm eating well, that I'm going to be saving costs for health insurance in the future, knowing that I probably am going to be less likely to have heart disease or like certain cancers. And so I just know that it's really important for everybody, but also when you're an entrepreneur, knowing that all of your health costs are coming directly from your pocket. But I would say like do research and I like have a traditional Chinese medicine doctor and a naturopath. Like I think don't really, if you feel boxed in by Western medicine or feel like, oh, I'm just going to the doctor and they're telling me everything's fine, but I don't feel fine, you should listen to yourself, because there's actually like, I don't know. I just think in the Western world, we tend to put a Band-Aid on things, or we
Mm-hmm.
tend to just get a prescription of, oh, you're feeling depressed, here, we'll give you a pill, but we're not going to get into the reasons why you're feeling depressed.
Mm.
So I think getting to the root of the cause and really actually understanding your needs can help you listen better to yourself and know what's really going on. So
That's interesting. I think you made like several really like poignant points. So one, I forget which one I want to choose first. With like sourcing, how is like what is your process? Like have you learned that maybe just from personal experience or going to a natural path, excuse me, I'm talking too quickly, and a Chinese medicine doctor, like how did you learn to begin sourcing those issues from like a root perspective as opposed to just treating the ailment?
yeah, so back when I was like a junior and senior in college, I was kind of having these weird health problems. Like I was getting really tired during the day, and I never was somebody that was napping. Like I always had really high energy. I was starting to like lose my hair by the crown of my head. I was getting acne. And I mean, I was not taking care of myself at all in college. I was drinking way too much. I wasn't really working out. I wasn't eating well. And all of these things caught up to me. And I went to a bunch of doctors, and they were like, did regular blood tests. And they said, okay, like you're fine. Everything's coming back normal. But I knew something was wrong. I knew, why am I losing hair? Why do I have acne? Why am I exhausted? My
Mm-hmm.
memory was foggy. So after going to a few doctors and not really feeling heard is when I ended up doing my own research, and I came across this book called Woman Code. And it's really interesting. It's by this girl named Melissa Vitti. And I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right. But she talks about how in the modern world, our whole society is based on the man's rhythm. So men have we have a 24-hour rhythm, but we also have a 28-day rhythm. So our whole lifestyle is kind of based on what's best for men. So like workout routines are based on like how men's bodies work better and like even our work lifestyle. So on the week of our period, we're supposed to really rest and not like work that much, but we can't exactly take a week off work because it's based on men who are kind of like, oh, you have really bad cramps on your period. Sorry. It's harder for them to understand. So she talks about how you can like adjust your work, your workout, your food to basically enhance like your 28-day cycle and work better with your body. And when I just followed her like workout and her food routines, I completely like all my symptoms went away. And that's when I ended up, it was real. And so many people, like this book has, it's like a bestseller. There's so many people that swear by this book and Alyssa. But then I had some of these problems come back again and I stopped really following. And that's when I went to go talk to a naturopath and a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, just because I felt really drawn to it. And I knew that traditional Chinese medicine is based on healing practices that have been done over 5,000 years. These are things that people know work, and it might not work for everybody, but I just did a lot of research and listened to myself, and here I am.
Gotcha. So like, how did you go about like, if someone else is like listening and like, they're like, this is really, I need to do that. Like I've been feeling that way. I want to find maybe alternative, I don't say even alternative forms of medicine, just non-Westernized, forms of medicine to research or pursue. What would be your advice?
I think I would definitely reach out to any community members, or if you have like, if you're on a Facebook page of entrepreneurs, or you want to post on your Facebook page and talk to people that have had a good experience. Cause I know that it can be kind of a little bit more scary to look for non-Western doctors because you don't really know as much about them. But I mean, I found my doctor because she works at like the George Washington University in DC. They have like an integrative medicine department, and I really trust GW University because it is a super good university and they have a really strong scientific department. And so I was like, well, if this girl works for GW, I feel like I can trust her. And so she is a naturopath and a Chinese medicine practitioner. So she's both. But I think just doing your research, finding somebody you can trust, look for good reviews, but also reaching out to your community and seeing if anybody you know has somebody that they would suggest.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. That's really interesting because like that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with different ailments where it's like, oh, just drink more water, like just get more sleep,
Yeah.
and then you find out like, no, there were cysts or polyps or something that like and it's just not part of the traditional screening process. But I think a lot of people feel like it's inaccessible. So definitely that's something that is a great, resource that I don't think the average person thinks of to be able to look into. And the book link I'll also put in the description and stuff so people can be able to like look it up and stuff. That's really interesting. So in kind of not really pivoting too much, but thinking about like the strategy of wellness and like why it's important to be well, kind of what does it mean to you to be strategic about wellness? Like what's your wellness strategy? So you go to you have a range of sources for like healthcare and medicinal practices. What kind of like what are just certain things that maybe like you practice or like your strategic approach to making sure that like work doesn't over consume your wellness or your health?
Yeah, so for me, and a lot of business owners do this, is doing some sort of morning pages. So a morning pages practice is basically just writing for 10 to 15 minutes about anything. It just like you just basically word vomit anything you're thinking about, and it's a good way to get out any stress that's on your plate. I have a prayer journal that I write in every morning that kind of helps me get my mind in the right place for work, write down like everything I want to do that day. And I also have a calendar that I write down all my stuff in the morning. And it's just really nice to have everything all in one place and knowing, okay, I'm going to get all these things done, and checking things off is also really therapeutic for me. Um, Also meditation. So I did like a super productive co-working session with DoWellDepartment the other week, and we did like a 5-minute productivity meditation during the 5-minute break of the Pomodoro technique. And we did a 5-minute chair yoga class for the other 5-minute break. So just like little things like that, there's so much benefits in meditation, and eating well. I think that is really important to me when I feel fueled, and sleep. 100% is definitely the most important thing to me. If I don't sleep my 9 hours of sleep, I know that sounds like so much to some people, but I'm not going to work nearly as well.
Yeah, no, I have, as post grad, I learned the importance of sleep. I think in college, you're like, yeah, like I'll totally just stay out and then like go to bed at 3 and then roll over and take this exam. And then like now at 10 o'clock, I'm like, you want me to do what outside my bed? Absolutely not. That's not happening.
No, it's so true. And your performance really suffers when you don't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really for your benefit. Like, are you going to sit on trying to type an email and not be able to get through the email because you're so tired, or like you keep losing your train of thought, or you keep going to your Instagram because you're like, oh, I'm just going to get distracted really easily.
Yeah.
And you end up wasting an hour of your day anyway, or are you just going to take that extra hour of sleep and then that kind of stuff isn't going to happen.
Yeah. Just being more efficient, more focused, and not just like on like autopilot all the time. For sure. And you kind of mentioned like, so like the chair yoga or the Pomodoro technique, and those are some of like the trainings and workshops that you've been able to partake in, or view. What have been some of your favorite workshops and trainings? Because I know you guys, like the one that I did, there's like you guys do those, was it weekly?
Yeah, we have weekly wellness workshop and a weekly business workshop, and then
Gotcha.
we have other ones during the week too.
Gotcha. So like I know that's like a lot of information that's always, circulating, which is awesome because it's a super resourceful space. And like Instagram page and everything. But like what have been maybe some of the more memorable things that you've taken away from some of the workshops and trainings that you've attended?
Yeah, definitely. The one that really sticks out to me in the beginning was our hypnotherapy class. I had never been hypnotized before, and I was kind of scared of it. I had kind of
Mm-hmm.
heard all these weird stories about what happens when you get hypnotized, but it's more of a really intense meditation. Like I didn't feel like, oh, I can't like control anything, or like I didn't forget what happened. Like it's basically she gets you into like a state of relaxation and then tells you things speaking directly to your subconscious. So having like negative subconscious thoughts can really affect yourself more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think if you think you're not capable of doing something, or I'm not enough, or I can't really own a business, like those little stuff actually works into your conscious and affects your actions, which affects your life. So this girl, Katie Potrach, she did an overwhelm hypnosis, and I actually listened to it every single night for 21 days. And it's so relaxing. She just like talks you through, like, I don't know, I can't really describe it, but she just makes you super relaxed and basically makes you feel like there's nothing that is that important that you have to do.
It's
So
awesome. Um, and I think, well, I've been to like hypnosis like shows where people are doing it for like magicians and stuff. That was kind of weird, but I wasn't being hypnotized. I just watched other people be hypnotized. But I have heard about that as like a therapy technique, especially for people who have like really traumatic experiences, who like often can't make themselves kind of go back and revisit things that have happened to them. So like they use that as a technique. But I never thought about it as like a stress reliever, I guess, and or like a.
yeah. No, I mean I definitely had like I remember my brother told me about this at his school. Like these girls were like hypnotized and they were dancing with the mop, like pretending that it was the hypnotist was like, you're dancing with the most beautiful girl in the world, and these boys were like dancing so closely to the mop and like giving them googly eyes. Everyone's just losing it. So that was kind of the idea of hypnotism that I had before. But it's so, because I think affirmations are just really powerful. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you're getting it directly into your subconscious, because sometimes it can feel a little cheesy to be like, I'm strong, I'm beautiful. And it really works, but it can be hard if you don't really believe that deep down.
Yeah. Also, if you're just like not a words of affirmation person, like I'm not a words of affirmation person. So like I have to like really try. Not because I don't believe it, but it's just like, why am I saying these things to myself? But I have definitely like in the past few months been really reading a lot about your subconscious mind and like the power of like really honing in what your subconscious thoughts are. How do you think about things? How do you think about yourself? And like your thought process and like just neural pathways and all of that. So it's really interesting, that that's something that, like you experience through, your training, but I think is becoming really popular, especially for entrepreneurs. I think strategically you got to think smart, about what's going on with my business. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be successful, because it's really easy to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. So for sure. But with that, kind of talking about trainings that you enjoyed or workshops that you enjoyed, one of the things that has been a really big part of your business, on top of like the trainings and workshops, has been like making sure your business is accessible on a number of levels, and it's inclusive. And so can you like discuss why that's something that's like so important for you, and something that you're invested in as a business owner, to be inclusive and accessible?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in general, the business world is not known for its inclusivity or accessibility. So I think coming from a certain place of privilege, I wanted to be able to focus my business on that, because I know that I've had certain, like I went to a really good school and I have certain privileges that I know other people didn't have access to. Like I had parents that were home with me every day after school who could do my homework with me. Like they didn't have to work 2 jobs and not be home with their kids after school to be able to afford their rent. And so I think knowing that, I want to help other people who weren't as privileged. And just like the business world in general, I mean, you look at all the top CEOs and they all pretty much look like white males. And so also as a woman, I know that we don't get as much venture capitalist money as our male counterparts, and it's even worse for minorities. So I was looking at this one study that they did in California, and only in California, only 0.5% of all venture capitalist funds were going to Black population business owners, when 5% of their population is Black. And it was even worse for the Latinx community. It was like 1.2% of VC money was going to Latinx community, when they make up 21% of the Californian population.
Mm-hmm.
So just hearing stuff like that and knowing how much harder it is to be a business owner, it's already really hard to be a business owner. And I know
Yes.
that I have privilege, so I just can't imagine not offering it, to like making my business more accessible to those sorts of people. Because I don't know. I mean, I just really want to help other people, and I think that they need more help than others. And also, I think it's good for your business too. I mean, I don't really like to say like, oh, this is going to help you make more money, so like that's why you need diversity. Like, I'm definitely want to come for it more of like an inclusivity side and wanting to actually support these communities better. But inclusive teams, they outperform their counterparts by 50%, which is huge. So, and I read another thing that was like companies with diverse leadership, they report higher innovation revenue. So they're way more innovative.
Mm-hmm.
They like get 45% of their revenue from being innovative, versus non-inclusive companies only get 26% of their revenue. So that kind of stuff, like there's actually financial reasons that you should be investing in diversity and inclusivity, knowing that it's good for your business, it's good for the people you're helping. So to me, it's just a win-win for both sides. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that was kind
like,
of the tangent.
no, but it's all valid, and it's also it's strategic, you know what I mean? Like that's my company, like focusing on multicultural communications, and even like for a podcast, like I'm trying to, tell people stories and about inclusivity, about culture, and not just, racial culture, but age, sex, gender, all that kind of stuff, socioeconomic class, through people's personal narratives. And the reason being is because there's so much, not just help and healing, but like so much innovation, so much thought leadership that can really come from embracing the like variance of culture. And even like the stat you were saying, like I read a stat that was talking about how people raise more money in their Series A and Series B funding rounds when they tend to have more diverse teams. So just showing how people from different backgrounds, from different upbringings, will also be able to solve complex issues in a different way. So when you put all of those heads together, it's a lot more helpful than everyone who looks and feels and thinks the same, as opposed to really bringing like, diverse thought into a space.
Yeah, I mean, you look at business owners who have to choose their partner, their business partner, or do their first hire. Like they're never hiring somebody that's exactly like them. Like they're hiring somebody that is the opposite puzzle piece of them, that does things that they don't know how to do. And so I think the fact that people just hire people that look, act, grew up like them are doing themselves a disservice by not getting new ideas. And I think if you grew up in a different way or in a different place, then you have more to offer in creativity wise than somebody that is exactly like you.
Yeah, for sure. And like even talking about like cultural difference and multicultural differences within businesses, like you're a woman in a business, a woman with her own business. And so like what does it mean to you to be a woman running her own business at this age, like during a time era like the one that we're in? Like obviously like that's daunting in itself, but just kind of like what has that been like for you and kind of what's your motivation?
Yeah, so I won't sugarcoat things. It definitely is hard. I know, like, I'm self-funding my entire business, and it can be really hard because I'm paying for all these workshops just out of pocket with my other business that I'm doing from freelancing. And it can be stressful. I can get to look at my finances sometimes and be like, oh gosh, am I going to make it until my next paycheck? Am I going to be able to pay this person? And so it can be hard because women, so last week we did this money mindset reset. And the girl who came on, Abby Vick, she told us how women are way less likely to ask for help in business. If you see a job, you will only apply to it if you're 100% likely that, or if you meet all of the criteria. But men, they will ask for jobs where they're only 60% qualified. And so it just made me think like, wow, I don't ask for help. I only apply for jobs that I'm 100% qualified. When I see something like I need 3+ years of experience and I only have 1.5, I'm like, oh, can't apply for that. But her saying that made me be like, what the heck? What are all these things that I have in my mind as a woman to like help and like think of everybody else and like put myself last? Like I'm constantly talking to my boyfriend on the phone during work because we have a 6-hour time difference, and I will leave work like an hour early because I'm like, oh, like I want to be there for him. But like I know in my mind that he's gonna be like, Calli, do your job. Like like he never wants me to stop working. He's like, I'm so proud of you. Like keep going.
That's
And so I just
awesome.
those sorts of like things that I've been taught my whole life as a woman, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm the oldest of 5. Like I'm a second mom to like my littlest siblings, or I think of myself as one. So I think learning how to ask for help and also just trusting myself more is really key.
Yeah, and I think multiple things that you said are relevant, like in terms of like having support systems and like taking on like personal responsibilities. But even I saw like your DoWellDepartment's like IG story, like when she said that, and I was laughing to myself because I was like, I just saw that same day I'd seen a statistic that someone tweeted on Twitter that they were like, I'm an HR manager, and the differences between how women of color versus like white men, like how they apply for jobs. So she was saying like she was getting for the same job, like the salary, I guess people were like pitching their salary based on the value of the position. And she was like, women of color like were pitching salaries between like $30,000 to $50,000, while this same like white men like applying for that job were pitching salaries of like 100 plus. And just like how we evaluate our skill set, how we evaluate our, you know, expertise when we come into a room, especially when you're in an underrepresented group, whether that be like a person of color or someone who grew up in a poor socioeconomic background or just a woman in general, is typically a lot lower than how like these like cisgender heterosexual white men will be like, hey, yeah, I'm worth all this money and you're going to pay me. And it made me think of all the times that like when I read the thing on you guys' story plus the tweet, I was like thinking about all the times that I've worked with people who are clearly unqualified for like the job that they had, but I'm like, how are we in the same space? And just like how prevalent it is in terms of being in these workspaces with people who are highly unqualified but are here too. So it's like if you can make it off sheer audacity, then I ought to have the same audacity that you know you have. So that's really interesting because I think that's something that this younger generation is like a lot more pertinent about like work-life balance and all that kind of stuff. But I think that there's still those like kind of not even I would say insecurities, but just like not knowing or feeling like this is the rule, I'm going to follow it, versus people who are like, I can be a rule breaker because I can. And I just don't think like a lot of women naturally have that kind of perspective, so to speak. And like with that, I think motivation becomes a big part of why we do what we do and how we do what we do, and kind of you kind of touch on that a little bit with like your family and your role in your family, um and you're being a fourth generation entrepreneur, like you kind of seem like, you're bred for something like this. What does it mean to you? Like, what is your primary motivation when you are going about your day, or when you're really pushing yourself forward, or doing your affirmations, or whatever it is? Like, what keeps you going?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this might sound like a little bit cheesy, but I really think about how much, if I can make money, how much I can help other people, and how what I can give back to my family. I know my parents, as being entrepreneurs, like it wasn't always easy. My dad was working in the construction business during the 2008 housing crisis, so you can imagine there weren't a lot of people needing to update their houses when the economy was not doing that great. And like our house ended up getting foreclosed and we had to move to a different town, and it wasn't really very easy. And I remember being like, I don't think I'd want to be an entrepreneur because it's too hard and it's too scary. There's no stability. And so I think me, like, I want to be able to give back to my parents for all that extra time they work to be able to provide for us. And I want to be able to help other people and donate to causes I'm passionate about. And also treat myself. I mean, not gonna lie, I have a Pinterest board of 160 pins of my dream life. And it's really specific and it's really extra.
I love it.
But I know what I want, and I also know like the power of abundance. And like if you write down your goals, you're 30 times more like or 30% more likely to achieve them. And so having those like clear goals in my mind and thinking of the people that I could help, thinking of how I can help myself, thinking, I mean, even of like my future family and like wanting them to have a stable life growing up is all stuff I think about when I'm doing this job.
That's awesome. Especially too, I feel like turning your personal pain, like in your personal story, like into something that's worth like motivation. Because I find a lot of people when they go through hard stuff, it's like, oh, that happened to me, and kind of like sweeping that in the rug. Like, I don't want people to know I went through that. But I think that's such a powerful point, because when you don't see people go through stuff, but then they end up successful, you're like, how can someone like me, who doesn't have what they have, end up where they are? In reality, they're actually just like you. They just don't want to tell you that that's something that they went through. Kind of like similar to your story, like during the housing crisis, like my father was a mortgage banker, so that like really affected our family, because like we had a foreclosure and we had to move. So it helped really, I don't want to say help, but it framed my like, perspective on money and business and relationships and networks, and like, kind of what I wanted to do with my life. And not just make money, but also be able to like provide for my family and be happy. So I really love hearing people tell like the fullness of their story, because it's really empowering. But I think when people are able to relate and identify, they gravitate towards that story, as opposed to just like, oh, she's perfect, like she's done everything fine and doesn't have any struggles. Like, so all in all, I feel like I've just like chatted her off about like wellness and everything. But kind of what would you recommend to people who are interested in like learning more about wellness, learning more about your business, or learning more about just like ways they can really tap into this? I think it's a big topic. The last I checked, it's like a $4.1 trillion industry. People want to be tapped into the wellness space. People want to be well and not just like okay. So I think it's a poignant topic. So like, what would be your recommendations to read, to watch, to listen to, whatever?
Yes, so I think the first thing you have to do is make time for yourself. I know from other busy entrepreneurs I've talked to, even one of our community members, before we did the super productive co-working, she was like, "Ugh, I almost didn't come because I almost didn't have time for this." And I was like, and she was like, and I know it's so silly because we're working right now. And so I think that can be the hardest part, is we end up not making time for ourselves and then burning out. For me, it's me spending like 2 hours scrolling on Instagram, because I get to the end of the day and I'm so tired that I literally can't do anything else, but I'm so addicted to actually like to scrolling and being entertained that I keep doing it. But on the days where I wake up in the morning and I do my morning pages and I meditate midday, I go on a walk, I get to the end of the day and I feel great and I'm ready for bed and I'm not wasting 2 hours that I could be working on my business. So I think definitely I'm trying to, so I definitely follow a few bloggers and getting into like the wellness brand sphere. One of the companies that I work with as a freelancer is this tea company called The Chi. It's really beautiful. It's like a whole flower tea, and it's a little dried rose that
I've seen that on your story.
oh, it's so beautiful, and just like doing little stuff like that. So I think like spending time walking around in a health food store or going to like a yoga class. I think being creative and the kind of wellness activities you want to do can be really helpful because it will be more fun. So like I tried out a red light sauna the other day and it was actually really nice and I want to go back. But I just like if you just search wellness in your area or wellness activities, even going on Eventbrite and looking up wellness tags. I'm trying to think of like blogs that I like. I like this blog called The Thirlby that talks about balance and wellness and work. I read like Well and Good and Mind Body Green and Thrive Global. I love Ariana Huffington. She's like the founder of Huffington Post, and she had worked really, really hard for years. And then she ended up having a horrible health crisis because she wasn't sleeping enough. And after she had that horrible crisis, she delved into the importance of sleep. And that's why she started Thrive Global, because it's all about the importance of wellness as a working person. So those are good blogs that I like. Also like Alex Wolf. She's like a little bit of an yeah, she's so cool.
Yeah, I saw her one time at this conference in like Chicago. I hadn't heard of her before, but like I like her energy too.
Yeah, she's always like keeping me on my toes about things. Like I read her book, and it was just really interesting, the things that she talks about, like why things are relevant, and just I don't know, the philosophy behind technology, just things I don't really think about. So whenever she comes up in my feed, I'm like, this is really interesting. So I like her.
That's also an interesting point in terms of like people coming on your feed. One of the things that I did was like I unfollowed anybody who made me feel like stressed out, like people who were like, you gotta hustle, like just no. It's like you gotta go. Like, and really like following people who either like thought provoking or like have like affirmations or peaceful, especially the affirmations, because I don't like, not that I don't think to do them, but again, like that's just not my forte. So it's like people be like, this is the affirmation for the day, and it's like, great, I don't have to like think about one. I can just say this one. And like if you're going to be on social, finding accounts that really help enhance the way that you think about yourself and your life. But those are all really good resources and things to follow. And then you also have a podcast for DoWellDepartment on Strictly Business. Like, can you talk about that a little bit? Like, how did that get started and what you guys talk about on there?
Yeah, so when I first started DoWellDepartment, we were having these successful, I don't even know what I called them. I think successful business owner Sundays or something like that. It sounds too wordy, so I don't think that's right. To have like entrepreneurs come on with our community members and have them talk. And I mean, our community is so small right now that not everybody attends all of our events. So sometimes it'll just be me, sometimes it'll be like 3 people, which is nice because you're getting a huge benefit if you like from joining right now. I'm putting like $1,000 plus into these workshops, and you're paying like $15 a month. And so eventually it hopefully is going to balance out. But for you, if you're working in a small group with an incredible business coach who can teach you so much and answer questions, it's just really valuable. But so long story short is the Sunday success. Oh, that's what they're called. Sunday success stories is these business owners that you could pick their brain, but I ended up, it just was always me one-on-one. So I just saved the audio and I was like, well, this is perfect podcast material. And the whole thing is asking business owners what they do for their business, but also outside of their business that helps them be successful. So I think our last week's episode was with the founder of Vibes, which is this, the first ever CBD drink. And he like didn't want to exactly tell me his sales, but I read online that one of his like first year, he made $8 million. and he is in like 20 states across the US, and he'd had like a failed business right before, and he said it was one of the hardest times of his life. And that's when he knew that he needed like a self-care routine, and that's how he ended up discovering CBD and creating these drinks. So it's just been really fun being able to talk to these incredible business owners who are successful. And like, I was shocked that Jonathan even wanted to talk to me, because I have this tiny podcast and a small business, but he was like, I love talking to him. Like, my Vibes is my baby. And when somebody reaches out to me who's a fan, like, it feels so good, and I always want to talk to them. So it's been really, really nice to have these like mini mentor sessions with these business owners. So I'm happy to share it with the world too.
That's awesome. So definitely people who are listening or watching can go on both YouTube and the podcast platforms. Subscribe to those, and I'll provide links for those as well. But awesome. Is there anything else that you feel like you want to add, or you like we didn't really get to chat about that you think is like worth bringing into the conversation?
I did want to share a few statistics, just because sometimes for the people that tell me that they don't have enough time to work, or like they don't have enough time to take care of themselves, like there's really crazy statistics about presenteeism, which is basically when you're at work but you're not working. So it's when you're not being productive. It's when you're on Facebook for a second, or you are scrolling through a blog post because you don't want to do your work. And if you don't eat well, you're 50% more likely to be at work and not be working. And if you aren't staying active, you're 66% more likely. So imagine all of the extra time you'd have in your day if you just spent 15 minutes a day going on a walk. And like, I don't care, like, I'm not a body positive, like, I don't care like what you're trying to gain, but just by like eating more greens, by drinking a smoothie in the morning, even if you're eating a burger for lunch, or just by doing like a 5-minute chair yoga session, is going to bring you some value. So I think putting things in small edible pieces that don't feel like too much, and just, you can do it. I will be your cheerleader. Abigail is here to cheer you guys on too.
Yes.
Any business owner who is listening, like, the number one thing that makes people not do their business is they just end up giving up because it's too hard. Like, imagine how many people you can beat. Like, the founders of Airbnb, they had a binder filled with credit cards. Like, you know those sheets where you can put like baseball cards?
Yeah.
Like, they had a binder filled with credit cards, being like, we really trust this idea, but putting all of their money in this like one basket, and they ended up doing it. So if they can do it, you can do it.
I love that. And I think that is a perfect way to wrap up the show, and a perfect way to remind people, that it's a whole body wellness. It's not just about, running every day, or like, neglecting everything else, but eating right, so you can keep your body shape, but then, you don't go to sleep. So definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I definitely appreciate it. I think there's a whole host of resources, because you came with the stats, the facts, just all of it. So I definitely think people are going to be able to benefit from it, and really see like how wellness is just as much a strategy as anything else. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you.